Hey, everybody, this is Sean Smith, and welcome to Awakening. Awakening is meant for people that want to be challenged and want to get better in life, right? Like, I have a thing where the dead man walking syndrome is something that really bothers me greatly. I believe my why is to lead and inspire others so that all may live life to the fullest in Christ. And this idea of people going through the motions and not getting the most out of this life, it literally bothers me. And I feel called to do something about it, right? And awakening is just one small way of doing that. So I hope to inspire you. I hope to enlarge your worldview or to challenge your worldview in such a way that you maybe become more others focused. I think a lot of times that we get driven into like this thing about self, right? And it becomes a lot about who I am and what I want versus like how to make a contribution back into the world. And I think those that live the most fulfilling lives are people who contribute at a high level, impact lots of people's lives. And it's usually done through loving and serving, acts of kindness, generosity, those kinds of things. And so I hope to encourage you in that. And it was so funny because the other day I was at the gym, and it was last week I was at the gym, and then today I was at the gym. And this woman that works at the front desk, she wears a T-shirt, and it says, "Be brave, be strong, be fearless." And when I saw it last week, I started, engaging with her on a conversation. I was like, I love that. I love your T-shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I just love that. Like this idea of being brave and strong and fearless. What a great reminder, right? To be able to look at your shirt and like, this is who I want to be to the world. And I told her, I said, I'm going to do an awakening on this. So here we are. And then again, it was so funny because when I'm recording this right now, it's Friday, right? And so I already went to the gym and I saw her again, and I'm like, there it is. I'm going to be doing that, right? And so I want to share with you about this and then share with you a great experience that I had today. But under this thing of being brave, right? I wonder if that's something that you even think about. Like, are you brave? Do you want to be brave? Do you strive to be brave? I don't often think about that. I really don't. But then I was like, I guess I like think about it differently. I use different words. So I think the words that I would put on it is obviously courage, right? Like, I think a lot of people is like, I want to be courageous. But that's not really what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is this idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. See, someone who's brave allows themselves to get into positions and puts themselves purposely in positions that are uncomfortable because they believe that in that they will grow, they will learn, they will get better. And they're willing to put themselves in a place that potentially leads to failing. And a lot of people don't like that. So it takes this sense of like, to be brave, to go into uncharted waters takes something. The other day I was thinking about this and I was like, I wonder about where I'm at in that. Like, I'm pretty good at taking things that I see and making them better. I don't know how good I am at like uncharted waters to risk that, to be brave in the midst of that, right? And so I wonder about that. And yet there's a lot of things that I'm up to where I do throw myself in the deep end of the pool and I try different things and I take on different initiatives, and some work and some don't, but I do think it's part of the great adventure. If I could put like another thing maybe on the back of the T-shirt, it would say the great adventure. And then on the front, be brave, be strong, be fearless. Because the great adventure it's this thing called life. And it's like, it's meant to be lived, not just kind of like to get by, to get through, to survive. No, it's about making a difference in the world. And being brave is like this idea, like putting yourself out there on the skinny branches, out on the limb, way out where the good fruit is, but it's also a place where you can fall, right? And I love that imagery. I want that for people. And I often say, like, if every month you're not doing something where you have like a little bit of butterflies, you have a little bit of doubt, you have a little bit of fear, it's like, are you really putting yourself out there, right? And so I would encourage you, like, what does it look like in your life to be brave? Where are you like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I've built a lot of us have built our whole lives, our adult lives, trying to figure out how to be comfortable. And here I am saying it's just the opposite. And I believe it to the core of my being. And it's like you could take it into any aspect or area of life. If you want to get better at something, you've got to get uncomfortable. All right. So then that was be brave. Then the next thing is be strong. And I'm going to come at this in a little bit different way. Be strong. I was I took a visit today. I went to visit somebody that it was highly emotional for me. It was a man who has Guillain-Barré syndrome. And some of you know my story. When I was 13 years old, I had Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a virus, and it left me completely paralyzed. I was, I could only move my left eye, right? I was on a ventilator. I couldn't breathe on my own. So it was 4.5 months of just horrific time in my life. And now you fast forward, and I since then have learned so many life lessons as a result of that. Like, I appreciate life at a very, very high level because of that experience. And so here I am sitting in the room with this man and his wife and my good friend, and we're talking, and he's telling me his story. Like, he's been in it for, I think he's been in it for about 4.5 months, right? And he's still not 100%, but he's on the verge of being healed, right? And getting back. And it was a weird, eerie feeling for me to be there and to hear his story and to hear the similarities. I'll probably get emotional retelling this story because it just does something to me. And he said something that was like unbelievable to me. He says, I'm not sure that I want to be completely healed until God's through showing me the lessons I need to learn. And I would suggest that some of you are hearing that and that sounds ridiculous. And then to others of you get it. Like, if you've come out of cancer or you've come out of a car accident or something where it was like life-threatening, or there's just something that happened to you that was tragic that now causes you to appreciate life at a higher level. It's oftentimes through a time of suffering that you understand better what life is all about. And so when he said that, it struck me on so many levels. Because one of the things I was going there is like, I wanted to be a living example of someone who'd been in a very similar situation. And I am a walking miracle before him to say, look, there's hope. Look, you're going to get healed. Look, there's possibility. And when he said that, I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to pray for him now for healing, because maybe God is doing something bigger in him, preparing him for a future that I have no idea about. And maybe he's got to go through it a little bit longer, right? And maybe not, I don't know, right? But I think that's the journey of life and faith. And so as he was doing that, to be strong, I'm looking at the idea of being vulnerable. At one point, he says to me, so many people see what he's been through and what he's, how much it takes to go through something like that. And they said, man, you must be so strong. And he's like, you don't know me. I'm so weak. Right? And then he looks over at his wife, and she's been there every day, at least for 8 hours a day for 4.5 months. And I remember my mom and my dad coming to visit me every day in Boston. My mom took a day shift, my dad took the night shift, and they were there every single day. And I was just like, man, you are blessed, because you don't know that gift, right? The gift of another human being and strength comes from sharing vulnerably. When you can just be comfortable in your own skin and you share who you are and what's going on inside of you, unafraid of judgment, unafraid of what other people will say about you, but you're taking a relational risk to share something that might just be meaningful to another human being. And there was a lot of laughter and a lot of tears today. And it meant so much to me on so many levels. One, to hear his story. Two, to be able to share my story, to hopefully provide a little bit of hope. But as I was thinking about it, it's not easy to go back to places that represent pain and loss and suffering, right? And yet, he said something that I agree with, because I've often said it since. He's like, I wouldn't change it. You know what I mean? Like, if we had a magic wand, we could go back and erase this from our history of our lives. He's like, I wouldn't change it. And I can say it in retrospect. For him to say it as he's in the midst of it was powerful to me. And so being strong might not always appear as what you might think it means to be strong. Some of you are so much stronger than you think, because there's a sense of resiliency. There's a sense of steadfastness. There's a sense of consistency. There's a sense of you're secure in who you are, that you can vulnerably share, and your authenticity helps people be themselves. You help other people set them free because of how comfortable you are in your own skin, where you share vulnerably, which gives other people permission to share vulnerably. And it's in that place of vulnerability that sometimes healing comes, sometimes freedom comes, sometimes a different perspective comes. And I just encourage you to think about being strong maybe in a very different way. And that goes for men. Like, I'm talking to men and women here, because so many of us as men, we get set up for failure. We get set up like because we were taught a certain way about what does it mean to be a real man. And I mean, years ago, I gave up that definition. Now, I believe that there's a sense of being strong and tough and being strong for your family and those kinds of things. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect that was missing from my definition was this idea of being vulnerable and helping other people to know that it's okay. Because whenever you have to hide behind a veneer that's not necessarily accurate or true, there's a sense of falsehood. And I want all people to know that they're loved and treasured just because. Like, you don't have to appear and show up a certain way, right? Physically. And I think that this is a really important thing. So be brave, be strong, and then be fearless. Be fearless. There's a guy, Steve Harvey, did a talk called Jump. And that's what this reminded me of. When I saw the t-shirt, I was like, the first thing that came to my mind is like, jump! You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to embrace being fearless, it takes something, right? And I remember doing a teaching before, and I was talking about this very point, and I got a picture off of Google Images about this little girl about 7 years old on the top of a diving board, right? One of those 20-foot, 30-foot diving boards. And she's like looking out over the edge, right? And it's like, you can see it's like, jump, jump. Is there danger? Yeah, there's a little bit of danger in there. There's a little bit of like butterflies, a little bit of fear. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. But man, when you actually jump in that moment, it might only be 2 seconds, right? That you jumped and there's something about you as a human being that you didn't know you had when you jump. And I just did a talk on Awakening about like living without a net. That's what it makes me like, jump. And when you do it, it's exhilarating. When you do it, there's freedom. When you do it, there's courage. When you do it, there's possibility. And it's like, yeah, you risk getting hurt. You risk not everything going smoothly, but you also risk this idea of learning something about yourself that other people get paralyzed in that same situation. Other people are paralyzed in their fear, right? And they refuse to jump. And that's why they built a life of status quo. They built a life of like defense mechanisms and just control everything, control my environment, control my relationships, control everything so that I don't have to jump. Right? Because we were programmed by life. The life of hard knocks has a way of programming you to start to live a certain way. Because I'm telling you, when you were a little kid, you were a lot more fearless, probably. Right? And then you broke your arm. And then all of a sudden you were maybe not as fearless. You were a little more cautious. And then all of a sudden you got, your girlfriend broke up with you, or a best friend stabbed you in the back, or, you lost a job, or whatever, you didn't get into the college that you wanted to. Like, all of a sudden life kept beating you up, and it's like cause you to, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to only apply to colleges that I know I can get in. Well, what does that do for you? I applied to Princeton. Most people don't know this about me. Like, I'm going to Princeton. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting that education. And when I didn't get in, I was devastated, right? Because I said to myself, I had an opportunity, I had a full scholarship to Boston College to play hockey and baseball, but I also had, I got drafted by the New York Yankees to play professional baseball out of high school. But I said to myself, if I get into Princeton, I'm going to Princeton. And I was going to play both baseball and hockey there as well. And my SATs came up, I think, 20 points short. And I went through like hoops. Like, I called up different administrators. I talked to different alumni, talked to the coach. Like, I was like, I got to figure this out. And they wouldn't move on it. And I was like, but the idea is you're not always going to get into your dream school. It's not always, life isn't going to always go the way that you want it to. But so what? You live and that made me hungrier. You know what I mean? Like, keep putting yourself out there. Keep living the great adventure, because that's where you learn about who you are. And all of a sudden, it's like, I love this thought. It's like, as you embrace risk, you help other people embrace risk. Do you get that? Like, we're not meant to go on this alone. Like, one of the things I love about what I do for a living and leading different organizations and different movements is that surrounding myself with great people. And that doesn't mean everything goes well. It just means that as you do life with these people and you know that you're giving yourself to something meaningful, that it's okay because you're willing to jump together. You're willing to dream together. You're willing to fail together. And you're willing to grow and learn together. Like, that is amazing, and that's life. And if you do it there, you'll do it in your marriage. And if you do it in your marriage, you do it in your parenting. If you do it in your parenting, you'll do it in your job. Like, this is important to get. Don't get stuck and paralyzed. Like, this is maybe the other sub-theme of this is don't get paralyzed in your fear. Don't get paralyzed in your past. Don't get paralyzed in what someone else said of you. No, you refuse that. You be brave and you be strong and you be fearless. And then you live the great adventure called life. You've been awakened. Peace out.